So I lead the information technology team in Safaricom. We call ourselves Digital IT, and the project management chapter practice is housed there. And we've largely been transitioning as a business from being a telco with a fintech to being a purpose-led technology company. And in that, we've seen our team scale from about 200 people to 800, and with a median age of 25. So you can imagine what we're dealing with. And so Mary and the team and us here probably are the ones who are old. I was impressed to see one of our people has been nominated as young, is it young PM? So that's good. It means we are bringing in fresh blood. But as Jean said, I've actually in two banks, both at Stanbic and CBA, led the project management teams directly as head of PMO. So I do have quite a number of these certifications and training, but I think also made quite a lot of pivots in my life, and very exciting to just talk about a few of the things. So I think one of the things we need to recognize, and that's important, is things become old very quickly. And some of the challenges that I see in our execution of not just projects, but re-platforming, is you're going to do something in January, but perhaps by July, it's no longer relevant. And just when the team was perhaps getting exciting on X delivery, something new has come up, and you just have to move very quickly into what I don't believe that there'll be a new normal. I think consistently we'll find ourselves in this new normal. So we cannot just say that there's a new normal that is going to last 6 months or a year or Moore's Law, 18 months. Things are changing, and the democratization of technology has brought us to a place where people even who may not be in your discipline are speaking into the discipline and defining it. And it should not create insecurity in us. We should actually be confident enough to move and transition. And many professionals and I hope and I trust that Jean and the team we need to find ourselves more open in the way we are willing to accept and integrate new ideas and new ways of doing things. I no longer know whether the tripartite constraints in projects still exist. I don't think so. I mean, there's a whole aspect around people and culture that we didn't factor in when we talk about time and cost. And so where do the people and the culture piece come in? When I was first delivering moved back to Kenya about 12 years ago, I joined CFC Stanbic at the point of the merger, and I was the program manager to bring in the systems together, and I had all my good project management trainings and disciplines. And I can tell you the number one thing that became a disaster was culture. And sometimes we think culture is just about tribes and communities, but even organizations have cultures. And the hardest part of that project, and I was quite young, and I'd be often reminded that I'm not even married or have kids, and that's why I can't understand people. I later got kids, and I don't know if it made me a better project manager, but it was culture. And these two banks were so similar, and they were both very successful before the merger, but they were a disaster, sorry to say, in terms of service post the merger. And so I was asking myself, nobody trained me about culture in project management. I just needed to make sure I had my project plan, I had my budgets, and I think later on, right now, in a lot of the things we do, we are finding ourselves talking more about culture and talking about people. I think consistently that becomes very key. I think when we talk about, when I look at agility, thanks for it, our CEO said about a year and a half ago that Safaricom's going to transition to agile, and because of that, about 60% of my team don't directly work in IT. Mary is in financial services, spends more time with FS than she spends with myself. But the challenge, we found ourselves in this whole agility space. And first of all, I was being asked, now that we've gone to Agile, will the PMO still exist? People, don't forget, people is the key thing. So I said we must exist. We have some large projects that need to be driven in a certain way, and programs or entire portfolios. But at the same time, we're doing a lot of iterative changes, and so you need that agility in it. And we're finding our project managers are actually becoming the best drivers of Agile. Because they understand the importance of structure, but also at the same time they're expanding their mindset to realize sometimes things need to change midstream. And I'm not declaring a crisis or a risk, but it's us being able to pivot very quickly, but also maintaining stability. And our early days, we were having lots of issues coming from the deployments being done in Agile. And one would typically perhaps think, let's throw Agile out of the window. But it was just about being consistent and coming to a place where you need to learn. And so systems and processes become critical. And I sometimes say it's like having a canvas. And you say it's fine, but just stay within the canvas. Be creative within there, but we're not going to paint on the walls. Let's just stay on the canvas. So how do we maintain flexibility and at the same time stability? Because we process about 70 million transactions on M-Pesa a day. And M-Pesa is also the platform that has the most changes, sometimes even 10 changes a night going in. Now, if any one of those changes causes an issue on M-Pesa, you're possibly looking that within 1 minute, we're having a crisis. Within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we're talking with the governor of central bank, State House is calling, internal security. So you must be able at the same time to be agile and flexible. And even when we're doing Hustler Fund, I think one of the more important things we thought at the very beginning and the onset with Mary and a gentleman called Felix was we need to put this capability in, but we can't afford to break M-Pesa because that would be a disaster. And so we started putting controls, and it was very interesting how, we're making calls intraday. I'm seeing things short code has already leaked, and we're seeing traffic building up even before. I don't know why we thought we could keep star 254 as a secret, and we're getting all these CEOs testing. I don't know if they're telling their. So all of a sudden we have 160,000 odd requests coming in, and we're just seeing where this is headed. And I text my CEO, I guess he tells the president, I hear the president saying 160,000 people have already opted in. And so during the day, we're just monitoring and saying, we need this to be successful, but we also can't afford the backbone of financial transactions in Kenya to fail. And I love that part of work where you're playing a balancing act, and sometimes you're even stopping a service for another service that's a priority. And quickly through Agile, that night, again, we worked the previous night, the whole night. That night, some key lessons we picked. And because of the short period of time, we couldn't put in the capacity. It takes us X time to order servers. Somebody asked me, George, why didn't you put this on cloud? Like, so much of our core infrastructure is needed to make this work. So we are leveraging on existing assets. We can't go on public cloud because of how much heavy lifting it would take for us to repurpose it. And so we said, you know what? No one has promised that you're getting a Hustler Fund instantly. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell you to give us 2 hours. We're going to queue these things. And during that period, we're just going to make sure that we're managing the traffic, protecting our core systems, and being able to also timiza the promise of the hustler. And quite excited that I think we have 11 million people who've already opted in within possibly less than 2 weeks. We've disbursed probably close to 7 billion. And, you know, everything I would say that could go right went right. And I think there was no I would say big complaints that the delivery and the systems didn't work. So please give a clap to Mary, who's here today. Catch her during the break and ask her about how we went about it. I think people, I talked about people. People are very extremely important in this, and I know probably one of my biggest drawbacks in my early days was just thinking it's about the task that needs to be delivered. And I just wanted to make sure my project is on time, I have kept the scope, and I've not gone over budget. It's within a tolerance of 5 or 10%. And, you know, just all the little things going well, and the Gantt charts and everything looking green. And sometimes to achieve that, you leave a lot of bodies along the way. And and I think one of the biggest shifts I've had in my career, if I look in the last, I think 12 years being back in Kenya, is just a shift to becoming a people leader. I always say that our teams do not leave their people, their humanness and their feelings in the parking lot when they come to the office. They don't park them in the car and then come in and they're robots. And I'm also a developer. It's very easy to do deal systems. Our first code that we were writing is hello world, and you tell the machine to do it and hello world comes. And you know, if I even ask you to say hello, some of you would be quiet. That's people. But if I told all the computers here to do it, they would all do it without debate. But why we exist, and I think project management is not just about management because we manage things, but it's also about leadership. And why we exist primarily is it's about people. If everything you could input it into some code and have it come out, there would be no need for us. But people are able to make decisions. To distinguish, do I do this, do I not do this? There are times I would just be like, okay, why didn't you do this? But somebody's probably going through something that is extremely difficult. They have a sick parent or a sick child, or they themselves are going through a turmoil in their marriage or a part of their family. But you're just thinking about the deliverable, and people are a resource, an input. But that input is quite complex, and one of the most important things we need to pay attention about is how do we handle the people, the humanness, even in our practice of project management and delivering things. And sometimes you need to perhaps over-index to help a team member, but the loyalty you get and the commitment you get from them is inevitably going to be something that you carry beyond. I'm very happy over the years in the places I've worked to meet so many of my colleagues, and the thing they remember most is not the big projects we did, but how we connected as human beings. Because new projects, new challenges will always come, but we should always find a way that we are impacting people and humanity in a positive way. So I think my encouragement to all of you is, you know, make sure that you're not leaving bodies along the way as you deliver, because at the end of the day, when you'll need somebody to come through for you or you're reflecting on your life, it won't be the big projects that you did, but how did you positively impact people? And then last, I'll talk a bit about productivity. And I think it's so many times we may wake up and just do things as routinely as they're supposed to be done, and I need to tick all these boxes. But I've been talking a lot lately about productivity, and what are you doing? Does it add value? And you're not boxed. You know, one of the things I like about the young team that I lead is, you know, sometimes you're like, recently, and those of you who use TIBCO, we use TIBCO as our integration middleware, and you can imagine how much TIBCO processes and what it has meant to Safaricom for probably over 10 years. But then the guys were like, the way TIBCO does things, why don't we get out of TIBCO? And it's something I challenge the team to relook, that if we're going to transition, what are some of the platforms that we can't carry with us? And of course you have people who say, no, we have to have TIBCO. There's no other way. But, sometimes we need to accept that, to challenge our own biases and beliefs, and some of them may be not just platforms, but processes. And I'm hoping, because Kenya has its own uniqueness, and I think a challenge to the chapter is, when we've gone into open source, we said we're not just going to be net consumers of open source technologies. We need to contribute. And so in the uniquenesses that we have as Kenyans and Africans, will this PMI, your chapter, will PMI Kenya be able to contribute to changes even in the way projects are done based on our uniqueness as Kenyans and Africans? That we're not just taking things from the West and putting them in, I don't know if it's West or East or where, but when are we going to begin producing practices, producing disciplines and ways of doing things that our young people are not referencing, people who sometimes their names are difficult to pronounce, but they're able to talk about Wanjiko and Owino and Akinyi and Mutua, who wrote this, and this is the way that we're going to do it. So I think let us not just be net consumers of what comes from outside. I'm very challenged when I look at India, where Bangalore is, that province, they export about $52 billion of software a year. We are 99% of our software is imported. So what are we doing to actually build Kenya, build Africa? And some of these things, you'll be very surprised that when you find yourselves doing things for yourselves, how relevant you are, how inspiring it is, because the challenge I've given my team is that we're not just people who are there to do support and monitoring. We exist to build and to create. And not only is it going to create jobs for people, not only is it going to help grow our economy, but more importantly, it's going to inspire people to want to be like people who look like them. It's going to tell them that you can come from a village, go to a village school. So I'm very proud, I say I went to public school, and be able to make something and that you cannot just contribute to your society, but also contribute to the world. Let people in Europe, in the US, and China be discussing processes and platforms and solutions that have been built in Kenya beyond M-Pesa. That they're saying Kenya has a lot more to export other than our tea or coffee, perhaps we talk about M-Pesa and athletics. But even in the practice of project management, that this was done, developed, piloted, tested, and scaled in Kenya, beyond Africa and to the world. Thank you so much, Jean and team.